Hello. Welcome to the Scotoma Scoop Podcast, Episode 3. We did have a little gap in between Episode 2 and 3. We did have a lot of things going on. Kids finishing school, and we had to, rearranging a few things. We got some new equipment. Violetta broke her arm. So there's been a lot going on that has kind of kept us. You want to touch on that?
I think just the basics of it. I broke my arm, fell down, walking, broke my arm, didn't think it was that serious. So it ended up being a lot more serious than I thought. Needed to get it, doctor's visit, hospital visits, surgeries, all sorts of things that happened that kind of kept us busy.
It kind of was a lot more serious than we thought it was. So now physical therapy and all that. But we are back to business. Like I said, we got some new stuff, some new equipment, got a new computer, so everything's back on track. So, to get right into it, Episode 3, we are going to be talking about back on lockdown. We are back on restrictions. We couldn't act right, so we're going right back to where we were in the beginning.
Not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. We're going to be talking about the monumental legislation to remove the Confederate symbol from the Mississippi state flag, which I think is huge. And we're also going to be talking about the race for the White House. The pretty much gamble that we're taking with Biden and dealing with Trump. Dealing with Trump. All right, so getting right into it. So, today, there was 53,000 new cases in the U.S. In Texas, there was 8,076. That's a record for Texas, and that's the sixth time in 9 days that we've hit a record for the U.S. So, in total in Texas, we've had 182,000 confirmed cases. So, that right there lets you know something. I mean, these are numbers that we are hitting that we were not hitting before. So, clearly things are not getting better. They're getting worse. I mean, do you think that it's because we're not doing what we're supposed to do, or do you think that that is because it's just going to happen the way it's going to happen?
I think it's a combination. So I think that in the beginning we weren't seeing that many cases being reported because, one, we didn't have the test. People weren't getting checked for it. People weren't thinking that that's what it was.
True.
And so I think part of it is testing, but I definitely think that now knowing how the virus works and how we're interacting, the fact that we're out now more than before, or it seemed as okay to be out, that definitely has to do with these numbers. We can't really deny the fact that the number of cases, even in a community, like in our own communities, is growing. We know everybody knows somebody who has gotten it, or who it's happening to. So it's not.
Well, people are out.
Yes.
People are out, and especially, and I can see why that Bexar County's numbers are reflecting the way that they are. Because you see people out.
Yes.
San Antonio is a bar scene. Those bars opened up, and they were packed. And it's a transmission hotspot. I mean, I can see why the numbers would jump. I mean, the mayor noted that the spike happened exactly 2 weeks after Memorial Day. So that lets you know. I think that Memorial Day was the first time people were like, you know what? I'm going to go kick it with a couple.
Yeah, like you've been cooped up for a minute, and I think we were talking about this before, the fact that we don't really know how to interact in a society with coronavirus, with all these new restrictions. Like, I think it's for us, we're used to like seeing somebody, giving them a hug, giving them a handshake, like being in each other's space like that.
It's
as
weird
like kids right now, they get their stuff ready, they put on their masks, they stay away from people. Like, there's a lot of new kind of social things that we're doing that we had to change. So it's like we haven't seen these people in months because we've been home. We haven't been going out like that, and all of a sudden you see everybody. Immediately it almost feels like you're drawn to people, which is exactly the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing.
If you haven't seen somebody in such a long time. I mean, people have been in the house, they haven't gone places. I mean, I know people right now that still haven't left the house at all. Curbside delivery. They're not leaving the house to go to the grocery store. They're not leaving the house to go to Walmart. They're not leaving at all.
Yeah.
They're scared as to what's going to happen. But if you are out, say you are out, and you do see somebody you haven't seen in 4 or 5 months, a close friend or something, it is hard not to, at least shake a hand, give a hug. It's a natural thing to do.
I know we're doing like the elbow thing or like the fist pump thing.
Yeah.
But it's strange. It's strange to learn this new behavior of staying away from somebody like that, and then not, and kind of fighting this impulse of being close to somebody, or like embracing somebody, shaking a hand. Like, I know for me personally, it's been difficult to remind myself when I see somebody, don't do that. Like, step back, or don't automatically do something like that.
Well, and the thing is, now we're right here on the break of 4th of July, and I know that the way I feel personally, it's going to be a repeat of Memorial Day. And that's why they're, putting these straight restrictions now, early on, to keep people from the beach. The beaches are now closed down, going into the 4th of July. And I can see the reasoning. I can see the reasoning behind that, definitely, because people are going to be out. But it's not going to stop people from getting together. I don't think that it's going to stop people from having barbecues that are going to be more than 10 people, because as of right now, more than 10 people in a gathering is, as of our city order, is they're just not having it. They think that is going to be a spreader, and it will be. And I don't think that it's going to stop anybody from doing anything on 4th of July. I think it's going to it's going to be business as usual, big barbecues, big family get-togethers. And I think we're going to have a repeat come 2 weeks from now, probably just a little bit worse. And I don't want to, fearmonger or sound like, just be in a negative sense. But from the pattern that we've been on, especially in San Antonio, from what I've seen, I think that that's where we're headed.
I mean, it's very possible, and if we just even look back at everything that's happened, and I think when everything was starting to happen and business were slowly starting to open, I mean, we had a very limited schedule of time. Everything was open from 8 to 6, and I feel like now the hours are the same as they were before. So it's you can
the hours have definitely gone back to normal
before
hours.
It felt like we can only do certain things during the day, so there was not even a reason to be out after 5 o'clock, because you couldn't even go to the store. You're gonna pick up stuff everything was limited. But I think now, even in just extending the hours, we're starting to go back with this whole reopening phase 1, phase 2 stuff. All this has changed that. So even in my mind, I don't think anymore in the times of 8 to 5. I'm like, okay, I can go get this later. I don't have to wake up this early to go do these things. So now, not only are we out more, are we in places where now you can, the stores are open till 10 o'clock, and you have more access, more time for people to be out during different hours that maybe you wouldn't have done it before.
I mean, I definitely don't see, when we first went on that lockdown, I know that after a while, it felt kind of barren. It felt like there was not too many people out. Mm-hmm. Traffic was lighter, at 5 o'clock. I feel like we're kind of, going away from that, getting a little bit away from that as time goes on. But at this point, city officials have said that we have 2 weeks, maybe less, until the hospitals are at capacity. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go by the same numbers that we're talking about with Memorial Day, 2 weeks after, we see this surge. It doesn't look like we're letting up as far as cases go, especially Texas. I mean, even the U.S. numbers. It's been, we hit a record high. We hit a record high. We hit a record high. It's just every single day there's more cases. So if we continue at this rate without 4th of July, say 4th of July isn't even on the table, we're gonna be in some trouble in 2 weeks. So it's an individual thing on how you're gonna combat it. But you can't do it for everybody. I can't do it for everybody, and it's frightening.
It's very frightening. It's the same thing when we were talking about it right before, when everything was happening, and we're just kind of watching it happen in other countries and not here yet. And we're talking about what would Texas's response be to all of this? And the same thing that we talked about is we cannot force people to listen to the rules of all of this.
I mean, just like I was telling you, I've always said, okay, wait till they start telling Texas what to do. Especially specifics on, where you can go and, what can be open and what can't be open. Even though, I praise Abbott for, his the his mask policy. Back? Yeah, the walk back. Okay, my bad. What, guys? Maybe we do need those masks.
Exactly.
Maybe we do need those masks. And it's a good thing to do, but like Nuremberg said, like our mayor said, it's about time. Mm-hmm. But is it too late? As of what, tomorrow? Mm-hmm. As of Friday, it'll be required for you to wear a mask.
Yes.
So if you're going to the store, if you're going to H-E-B, if you're going to Walmart, you will be required to wear that mask. And he even went, Abbott even went as far, Nuremberg went as far as to say that there was going to be temperature checks wherever you were going. And they had to walk that back because I guess that was a little too extreme, which I can see, every single restaurant, every single, establishment, every store having to do a temperature check. That probably isn't too feasible for the entire, city, but they are still encouraging businesses and establishments to do that, which makes sense. But I could just see that being a problem as well. If you have a problem not wearing a mask, and then you're standing out in the heat all day and somebody says, hey, sorry, never mind, you can't come in. I could see plenty of viral videos coming out of that.
But I think it's a minor inconvenience, and since this physical therapy, since the broken arm, like, I feel like every time I go in, I have to check my temperature, and it's happened to me where my temperature was a little bit higher, like, was slightly higher, and they make me wait, and honestly, waiting 5 minutes is like a minor inconvenience, and if it's gonna keep somebody from getting sick, because I may be sick or something like that, I really don't mind it, and I feel like if you were in that place and you're in a rush already or something like that, like, it might be inconvenient to you, but honestly, to me, it didn't feel that bad. I waited for like 5-10 minutes. I took it again, and it was fine. I think because I don't know how many people are really out there trying to get tested or trying to report what's going on with them, or if they even want to know.
Oh no, the contact trace game in the U.S. is dismal, and even I read an article today. They were saying at this point, when it's so community spread, and it's not these small pockets of what's happening, like, oh, we have an outbreak here at say this apartment complex or this nursing home. When it's so community spread, it's almost a lost cause to try and contact trace so many different cases.
I know the city was talking about if you've been in contact with somebody, letting somebody else know. Almost as a courtesy, hey, because I can understand that. I mean, I can understand the strain that's on people already. I mean, at least say something about it, only to help somebody else. Maybe prevent. You have to prevent somebody else from getting sick, and it's just like we don't have the tools or the resources yet to track people the way that we should to keep this from spreading that way. But it's like we already know how it spreads. We know that we should use a mask, that it'll help. We know that to watch for the symptoms and all that kind of stuff. So it's something like we don't know. I think it's just like we were saying before, people are just not listening, and it's very difficult. And I understand it. I understand the urge to be out, to see your friends, to just kind of continue your life. We've been here for months now, and this kind of cabin fever type stuff where we're just like everybody wants to go back to normal. But clearly, it's like you go back to normal for a second, and they shut that door in your face and go back inside.
You know what it's like? It's like that kid that's always acting up, and then like when he gets home, he can't come out to play, and then once he does come out to play, he does something crazy, and then he's back on lockdown. We're all grounded, like we gave you a shot. You messed it up, so go back home, so, but I mean, and now they're talking about, a few, consequences. They're saying that violators will, they're going to receive a verbal or written warning, which I'm assuming will be, most of what they're talking about as far as the mask goes. But they're saying in violations, you can get a fine of up to $250. And I know that Judge Nelson had actually said that he was pushing for a $5,000 fine on businesses that weren't requiring the mask. Now that's not in in any state order or anything, but he wanted that. He felt as if that would be necessary. In some places it might be, because some people are not they're not compliant. Some people are just not having it. They think that that it's too much, that it's extreme, that your rights, and I should be able to do whatever I want. So I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll see. I mean, like I said, they said 2 weeks. July 4th. I'm sure it's gonna go down in San Antonio. We'll see 2 weeks from now. See where we're at, and I guess we'll get back to it then. We'll check back in. All right, y'all. We're gonna take a quick break, but when we get back, we're gonna be talking about this monumental legislation with Mississippi and this Confederate symbol that they are removing from their flag after 126 years. All right, we'll talk to y'all when we get back. removing the Confederate symbolism from their flag. So, like I said before, the flag has been up for 126 years. So, it's been going for a long time. They held a ceremony on Wednesday to retire the former state flag, and they sent it to a history museum. This is after Governor Tate Reeves signed the bill. They said they had a lot of support for the removal of the Confederate symbol. I think it's huge.
I think if I don't think I would have ever said this in really 126 years. Congrats to Mississippi for doing that. It's a huge move. It makes me very proud of them.
Yeah, Mississippi
to do something like that. Mississippi of all the places in the world, and just generally anywhere in the South, to say, hey, we understand what this means to some people, and when we don't stand behind that, we're taking it off of our flag. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
it's a very
huge.
Big deal.
So let's not forget that they had a little bit of pressure. There's been a whole lot of pressure, and I find it funny that companies that you wouldn't think would be making the most changes are. It's like NASCAR, like of all things. NASCAR's like, oh no, we're not doing this anymore. We're taking down the flag. As a matter of fact, you can fly the pride flag too.
You know what?
We're gonna be kneeling during the national anthem. I was in shock.
I'm gonna be real
when
here.
I saw that.
When I think of NASCAR, I think that's a white sport, and I don't even want to. I don't think that that's something that I think. Okay, you have to change these things that they're gonna be about it, but they surprised me
on board
when how quickly they just started kind of changing everything around, and I was like, okay, well, good for you, NASCAR.
Much props to NASCAR. So Mississippi has now brought the flag down. Mm-hmm. They don't have a new flag yet. They said it might take some time. They have put a little clause in there that establishes a commission to create a new flag, but it must include the words "In God We Trust" on the flag.
So that's one thing that I figured Bible
I
Belt is the South. I always have these things about it only because I feel like we're a nation who came here to worship as they wished and all that kind of stuff. And so now whenever I hear that, I was like, there's so many different religions in this country, and to put that on there, to me, it kind of feels very strange. There's people who have no religion. There's Muslim and Buddhists and Christians and there's a lot. To me, do we have to put that on everything? I don't know, but I can understand the community where this is coming from, and it's already in our money. So I get it. I don't agree with it. Baby steps, We're taking Confederate symbols out.
I think that they probably
separation of,
I'm sure that was a kind of give and take situation in that house to figure out exactly what they were gonna do. I'm sure they were like, well, it's got to say something. Then you got to give us something. I'm not sure. You don't want to be quoted on that. I'm not sure how many other state flags have "In God We Trust" on the flag. I know that Mississippi was the only state out of the 50 that had the Confederate symbol on it. And it's, for those who haven't, driven through Mississippi, if you're coming from Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, once you get to Mississippi, you're going to get that same old, hey, that big sign, welcome to the state of Mississippi. There's probably going to be a little rest stop. And at that rest stop, upon entry, you're going to see the United States flag, and you're going to see the Mississippi flag, or what was the Mississippi flag. And a lot of people who have never even thought about it probably see that and go, what is going on here? And it is Bible Belt. And when you see that, it is kind of a shocker. At this point, I've been used to it. I have family from Mississippi, and, I've been to Mississippi, I can't even count, at least once every year, it seems. And, I'm used to seeing it. And it's sad to have that normalized, to look up and see that and, just think, well, that's, this is the way it is. This is how it goes down here. But yeah, they had it up. Everywhere. But it's not like Texas, though. True. I will say that. It's not like Texas. You come to Texas, you can see the Texas flag everywhere.
Yeah, of course.
It's everywhere. If you see an American flag, you probably see a Texas flag right with it, So, but it's not, they're not flying the flag like we are flying it here in Texas. But the flag is there for you to see. It would have flown right above the Capitol. You see the flag, you see the Confederate symbolism in it, and it's tough to swallow, but. Apparently,
but I think
they were
it's
used
because,
to it.
like to me and you, when we see the Confederate flag, we see it for a very different reason than most, than maybe, the people in Alabama see it, but
history.
The Mississippi and all these places.
So
it's like, it is, but I think that's a little bit misused, because I feel like whenever I do see the Confederate flag, the Confederate symbol, is not really used in that. I don't think they're very concerned with the history of it or where it's coming from. To me, I've seen it mostly as a symbol of oppression and hate and and
Most definitely.
and racism and things like that. So to me, when I see that, that's what I see. And I think that people use that because they know that's the symbolism behind it. So that's the one thing that kind of troubles me with it, because I get it, it's just a flag. And if you're flying it because you're a descendant from somebody who was part of the Confederacy or something like that, that's different, because that's the flag that
Is it though?
they well, to them it's different. To them it's different, but to me the Confederate flag is always felt wrong.
Yeah,
It's
for
felt
sure.
wrong. Whenever I see it somewhere, I feel offended. I feel upset about it. I don't want to see it. And if I see it a lot around me, I'm not comfortable in that place.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh
like you're
yeah,
saying,
well that's a
but you even
solid
but you
right
even
there.
said it in your own words. Like, you've seen it so many times. To me, if I see that coming into a state, like to all the places that I've been, I see it, I feel weird.
Oh
I
yeah.
feel weird, and so I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel okay with it, and I kind of don't like the fact that almost like it's been grabbed and used by people to promote that, to
Oh,
promote
absolutely.
oppression,
I
to
mean, you're not
promote
gonna
fear, to be
go
like,
to.
do you really know where it came from? Do you know how old this flag is? What do you know the history behind all these things? And I think some people use like, oh, people think that this is racist, or it scares people, or it symbolizes something that I stand for, whatever that may be. But I don't think that that's what that flag was intended to
Well,
do.
in most situations, in most scenarios, you'll see the Confederate flag fly shoulder to shoulder with white supremacy flags.
Yeah.
Swastikas. I mean that you see that a lot. I mean, I'm not saying in every instance that's where you're going to see the Confederate flag, but when you think about it, that when I think about it, let me speak for myself. When I think about it, that's what I see it flying next to. That's what I see it meaning. So I do take offense to it, and I do feel uncomfortable.
That's a really
with
good
that feeling.
question too for people. I think that we should like, when you see the Confederate flag, how does that make you
Yeah,
feel?
how does it
Do you
make you
feel
feel?
comfortable? Do you feel at home? Do you feel like, what is the feeling that you get from it? Every time I see it, it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me upset. If I see it next to some kind of like racial thing or some kind of hate speech, it's even worse.
I mean,
You
you're
know?
automatically it's a bias from a standpoint of someone who sees it like that they're automatically going to be like, okay, so this person is racist. You know what I'm saying?
Almost, yeah.
If you show up, to the campground and somebody's flying a
Like, oh
Confederate
my
flag,
gosh.
okay, we gotta have
We
some
gotta,
problems.
we gotta
here.
move over.
Yeah, I gotta get a different spot here because this isn't gonna work. And you're automatically thinking, and not to say that everybody that has flown the flag is racist, but it's definitely gonna seem that way to other people, that are looking at it, to other people that have to see it. If you're flying it on your house or behind your truck, that's what people are gonna associate with it for the most part, and it's a negative thing. It's a bad start.
And I've asked people too, like, okay, why do you have this? Why are you putting this up here? And I've never really kind of gotten a straight answer. Something that I felt like was not a valid reason. They don't have to prove to me why they want to fly this flag, but the reasoning behind it was never something that I was like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. And I found it really interesting. I've seen a lot of articles pop up recently talking about the descendants of these Confederate leaders and what they think about taking the monuments down. There've been a few people who are like, no, don't take them down, keep them up, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like there's quite a few people on there that, don't mind if they're taken down, if it's gonna help their country heal, if it's gonna help people move forward, and they're okay, they're all right with it. And it was interesting because I never really thought about that, because to me, like we were saying before, it's always made me uncomfortable, it's always made me upset, but it doesn't represent anything to me. Like, it's not tied to like my great grandfather, or
But I
nothing
think
to my family like that. So I don't care about it in that sense. But
I think that a lot of that goes back to the education part of it, though. I mean, a lot of people don't know how serious the atrocities were. They don't know flying the flag to protect that slavery, what
yeah.
that really means. It's like I compare it to somebody saying, oh, there's a statue of a Nazi, which there's none.
There's not, no.
There's no monuments to Nazis in Germany. But
SS
if there
soldiers,
was,
there's nothing
if there
like that.
was, I don't think that that a person would be standing up, raising their hand like, that's my uncle, that's my great great uncle. I don't think that I know I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But we still have these monuments. We still we're still paying tribute to things, and to really see who these people were. I don't think that that's something that I would want to be just making sure everybody knew that, hey,
That's
you know,
true.
this is my family and this is what we're about. You
And
know, like
and there's other ways to pay tribute. Like they're saying, they put the flag, they put it in the museum. We can go back and look at these things. It's part of history. We can't erase it. You know, you could take all the flags down. That doesn't mean it's going to be gone. People are going to forget about it.
no,
But at the
no.
same time, it's not the place right now. It's not the time to continue to push this narrative or to keep this up there like that. Like if it's something that makes people feel uncomfortable, and like you said, that it was used to promote oppression and things like that, it's just, there's no need.
I mean it's in a museum and that's where it belongs.
Yeah.
It's no doubt at all. It's part of history. It's
Yeah,
a
of
part of
course.
history. So I mean, some parts of history need to be in a museum. They don't need to be flying on all of my neighbors' houses,
Yeah.
right? And with that, you know, a lot of Confederate statues and memorials have come down. 23 since the passing of George Floyd by murdered by the Minneapolis police. That's 23 Confederate statues that have come down. So that's a lot in itself. The last time there was something even close, or shall I say more, was after the Charlottesville incident, where there was many good people on both sides apparently.
Oh no, there was not.
So there was 36, I believe, statues and memorials that had come down then, and in total, if we were to, you know, rack them all up in total, there's been 114 Confederate monuments that have been either removed or taken down since 1865. And if you really think about that, it seems like there's probably not that many more, but trust there are. There's over 1,500 monuments in the U.S., 700 being statues, but 114 have been taken down since 1865. And if you really look at the numbers, only 2 were taken down as of 2009.
But
so that's staggering.
The time frame is like from 1865 to 2009. Only
two statues. And that's probably because they were like, this is in the wrong spot. We're gonna move it over here. That's what I hear when I hear 2 statues. I don't think that's like, hey, we need to bring this one down. I hear, you know what? Let's move it over to town, to the town square, because right here it's not a really good angle for the sun. So only 2 have been taken down. But since then, 114, and like I said, 23 within these past few months. And me personally, I think it's a good thing. If you really love it that much, or like you said, if that's a family member, then put it in your backyard. You know, people don't want to see that every time they go to work. It shouldn't be glorified. You know, and especially from this whole idea that the U.S. is we're just winners and we're the best at everything. Then why are we putting up monuments for the losing team?
Yeah, they lost, and not only that, but it's a different time now. I think it's a slippery slope when we're idolizing these humans, because they're human beings. They, their point of views were not what we believe in now, what the country believes in now, and they may have done whatever they may have done, but we don't need to be seeing that. We don't need to show that, put that up there when it has such a dark past for some people. It doesn't. If, let's say, they had won, that would be a different story, but they didn't.
Oh, they'd be everywhere.
And the values that they stood for,
they're everywhere right now.
But the values that they stood for are not what we want to stand for as a country. So we don't need to do that. I don't understand why we need, 1,500 monuments and stuff and 700 statues.
And the pushback is shocking. I mean, it's not as much as I would think, but there's still this pushback, and even coming from the leadership, there's this pushback of, this is our history. And I mean, like I said, it belongs in a museum. It doesn't belong in the middle of a busy city, a large city, a metropolis. It does not belong there.
But I mean, we've seen this. We've seen these statues when we went to the protests recently, where people are protecting these monuments and these cenotaphs or whatever with guns and, and their little militias, because they want to preserve the history. The history is not going to go away.
No,
just because whether this sculptures here, whether these monuments are here, whatever, it does not matter. The history is going to be the history, and I think that people are pushing so hard for this. And the only thing that I can think of why they would do this is because, like, let's say 10 years from now, we don't agree with whatever else, right? And we're like, no, take that down. 10 years ago, we were okay with it, but we're not okay with it then. So this kind of like ever-changing...
It's the where does it stop mentality.
Yeah, where does it stop? And I could see that. I can understand where, like, okay, all of a sudden, we're taking all these down, and then what's going to happen to war memorials when we decide, war is bad, and we don't want to glorify that. So where does it stop? So I could see
cross that bridge when we get to it.
Exactly, but that's the only thing that I can see of why they're like, well, we don't want to take this down. But I'm grateful that anything has been happening and that they've been taking them down, they've been listening to people. Because honestly, I think that if they don't, people will. And so,
Oh, I mean, well, it's been proven. You know, they out there with chains.
Taking them out, you know. And,
I mean, it's been wild.
and
It's
it just
been
goes,
wild.
and it goes back to this thing. It's an inanimate object. You know, like what is more important, the peace in your community or this?
And like I said, it's I feel like it's just it's very thin ice to come out and say, you know, I don't know. I think we should leave that up. Why?
Yes.
Tell me why. Like why? Like explain to me why. Though it's a part of our history. There's a lot of things that are part of. Where's the Harriet Tubman statues at?
Yeah.
Let's throw a couple of those up. Let's put those into place. I mean, if we're really talking about history and that's what we're really trying to preserve, then there's a lot of history that, you know, we're missing when it comes to statues and monuments. There's there's a whole periods of time that have been just kind of glossed over. Yeah, that we're not talking about. Let's put a couple of these people up on the pedestal if we can.
It doesn't make sense to me that they would push so hard. Like I said, I think the only reason that I can think about it is how much are they going to give. But at the end of the day, points of view are changing, the way we think are changing, the world is changing, and
it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing that we're like, hey, we don't need this anymore. We don't stand for this. We won't stand for it.
And most people are behind that.
Yeah.
Most people are behind that. I mean, you are gonna have you know, a few people that are always gonna try to hold on to that, and especially you know, especially in the South, because I mean, it's crazy how it's still kind of divided. You know, you go. The further north you go, and people are like, absolutely not. Like, there's the majority of people there are confused as to, you know, why they're even there. A lot of people, you know, don't even have that education to know that they exist in the numbers that they do. We're talking about over 1,500 statues and memorials to, you know, to generals, military bases.
But it's
military bases.
It's embedded in our education system. It's in everything we do. Like you said, it's been there for so long that you forget it's even there. You don't even think about it. But just because it's there and it's been there doesn't mean that we're going to continue to keep it there and that it's okay to keep it there. Like, it's time for them to go. Put them in the museum. I mean, you want to go see those, you know, you want to go see those Confederate statues? More power to you. Go check them out.
Buy a ticket. Go walk by. They can tell you all about it. The guide will tell you all about it. Where it used to be in Times Square. Mm-hmm. All right. So, we would love to hear what y'all have to think about it. I know you know we've talked it out, and I know you know where we stand, but we'd love to hear what y'all can think about it. Y'all can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. When we get back, we're going to be talking about this race for the White House, what it's going to be in November. It's shaky ground right now, and it is undetermined. Trump and Biden face-off, where we are now and where it looks like we're going to be in the fall. So first off, I want to talk about the money. You know, money is ruling politics, and I really like to talk about it. We read in one of the articles that the Trump campaign is leading Biden by $187 million in campaign funding. So with that kind of lead, that's basically saying that if Biden were to raise $1 million a week from now until election day, he would still be short of the kind of money that Trump has.
That's a lot of money.
And my question is, what does that mean? I mean, you see, you know, according to the polls, we're talking about double-digit leads from Biden. So if Biden is leading by so much, and it seems that so much of the country is leaning towards his direction, then why are so many people giving Trump so much money, so much of their hard-earned money?
Do you think it's like a sense of urgency, maybe, that they think that he needs more money to kind of put more ads out and do more rallies and do all that kind of stuff to kind of, you know, get people out for him? I mean, because they could be kind of like,
I think that Biden needs that kind of money too, and he's not seeing it. So who are these people that, I mean, his base would be at a lower income. I mean, that's their hard-earned money. No. That's their hard-earned money that they're giving to the Trump campaign. And, I mean, I just don't see why the numbers aren't... I mean, I'm not saying they should be the same, But I would think that they'd be a little closer than they are.
But they're trying. I think they're also trying to keep him in power. Republican Party, Republican donors, and they're trying to keep him in a position of power that'll be good for them. But I also don't think that, like you're saying, that they're the base of his.
But do you
voters.
think it's big money? Do you think it's big money that's
think
coming in,
it's
just
big money.
large donations, or do you think it's more so a lot of smaller donations?
I think it's big money. I think it's money that we're not seeing, because honestly, at the end of the day, with everything that's happening right now, and so many people out of jobs, I don't really think. I mean, it'd be interesting to kind of look into it, which we should, to see where that money is coming from, what the average income of the people who are donating is. But I kind of think it's big money, or the power and the influence of being the president and being in the White House that might get him that money. But I don't really know, honestly.
I don't know. It's something that's been on my mind. It's definitely something that's been on my mind. And even with these double-digit leads, there's talks of all this money coming in. There's talks of the flooding. And then there's also been some talks and rumors of Trump dropping out of the race if it looks like it's a lost cause.
Well,
do you really think
I
he
wish,
would drop out?
I'm just gonna wish and hope that is the
It's
case.
been something
that
that's
it's
been
as
discussed.
easy as he's out. But then again, that means they'd have to come up with another Republican nominee, right? So it's not like it's just gonna be he's just gonna drop out and it's gonna win. There's still gonna be there still needs to be.
I'm sure
they
have to. They have to have a backup plan.
They have to have some sort of backup plan. But I think that the way that things are looking. It's not great.
I was surprised when I saw
it.
I was surprised when I saw it, but at the same time, I wasn't. It wasn't something that I had thought about. I'll put it like that. It wasn't something that had crossed my mind as a possibility. But once, I read it, I'm like, okay, I can see where this is going. He's not, as far as the polls go, he's too far behind. It looks like a lost cause once you roll it in. Then, hey, you know what? I'm just going to drop out. Just to say that I was never defeated. Just to say that, nobody ever voted against me. That I could see him doing something like that. But it would have to be a complete lost cause. And frankly, I don't think it's a complete lost cause. Like I've said time and time again, I have a feeling this dude is going to... I have a feeling this dude is going to win.
Honestly, I want to be positive about it because...
I don't want to be negative.
I don't want to say that. I'm hoping that people come to their senses and move away from it. But I really, really am curious to see what this pandemic, what everything that's happening with the economy, what that does to the view of people. Because I know that we see, some real hard Trumpers out there, supporting and all that stuff. But also we're in Texas. What this looks like around the world, around the country, might not necessarily be what
I'm sure it definitely
here.
doesn't look anything like that in, Denver. Right
Yeah. So honestly, it's, we're in a different place where we see it a lot, but I don't think that he's playing to his base. I don't think he's doing any of the things that they want him to do. He's not taking down protesters and sending in the National Guard and things like that. So it's not like he's doing things that they want him to do. He hasn't turned around the economy. It's a very difficult space. Thinking we're 6 months out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that. It's interesting that you say that because I've noticed that, and we were talking about this earlier, how Biden is putting all of his focus into the handling of the COVID crisis. Everything that he's spoken on, every ad, every campaign talk, every interview, it's been this whole drop the ball conversation about Trump. And it seems to be working. I think it's a solid campaign strategy to discuss, the flaws of the past, year. This past year, to put that in the spotlight and to run ads on that. It seems to be pulling through for him. I'll tell you that much. While Trump, on the other hand, is, from what I've seen, is just completely focused on the monuments. To take it back to these monuments being torn down and removed. There's been so much talk of them and catching vandals and we won't stand for it. He actually tried to put together a block on federal aid to states and that had cities that weren't, as what he said was failing to protect these monuments. So it seems like he's trying to avoid the hard questions, the big questions.
Because he has to. How could he possibly could talk about coronavirus without talking about his own failures, because number one, he wasn't that worried about it. He was pushing for reopening. He was trying not to make a big deal out about it. Even when right before everything shut down, and everybody started doing stuff, he downplayed it the whole time. So it's like, not only is he going to have to face the reality that he did the wrong thing at the wrong time and he didn't protect the people he was supposed to protect, the country, and
I mean, he's gonna have to.
He's gonna have to admit that he can't just be like, "Oh, I'm gonna start responding to it now." When he downplayed it for so long, now he has to.
It's a current.
But he's not going to, why in the world would that help him in any kind of way? To talk about it.
I mean, he could at least. I mean, I thought he would at least try to spin it to avoid it altogether. I mean, he's not. Well, let me stop. He's not avoiding it altogether. He said it was handled yesterday. He said it's being handled, whatever that means. It's sure not being handled here in Texas.
And he talks a lot about defeating a virus. You know, so it's it'd be interesting, like I said. But I don't think that. And as far as Biden goes, it's not really that far fetched. I mean, it's true. He isn't handling it well, and I think there's a lot of things that you can pull from about all the things that he's mismanaging or not doing correctly, because obviously it's Trump. Every single day he does something that somebody has to explain. And so I don't think it's hard to pick something, but I think that this pandemic in the time frame, that it's happening, like during an election year. I mean, honestly, I think that we're going to be wearing masks when we vote. Like, it's gonna be a very it's gonna be a very prevalent thing. People are gonna talk about what happened a couple months ago. We're not coming back from it that quickly, so it will be going on when people are casting their votes.
And it's crazy to think about that too, because it seems so far away. I'm sorry, but at the same time, it is a lot of time in between for them to have to wait. I mean, like I've said plenty of times, Biden scares me every time he starts talking. There's just enough time in between now and then for him to make a grave mistake.
Worse things have happened. People have said and done other things. Like I've said before, I stated before, I'm not comfortable with Biden as a candidate, but I'm definitely more uncomfortable with Trump as a president. And so, we're faced with that decision, but But I gotta agree. I mean, don't talk anymore. There's no need. Like, I think that Trump is gonna be his own downfall. Just let him. Yeah, that's what they said the first just time. Let him do all that to himself. I don't think nobody has to even interfere. Yeah, I think that you just kind of watch it, and the more that somebody doesn't interfere, just like the worse and worse it gets for him. So just let him dig his own grave there. Like,
we shall see. We'll talk about it next time.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. And I just want to remind everybody, you want to let us know what you think, give us your feedback. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all under Scotoma Scoop. And we'd love to hear from y'all.